while I what's the word? While I make my bed, actually. Um, Obviously, I just finished As You Stood By today, and um, yeah, gonna be talking about it. Um, the show was so good, so good. Like, I feel like my first thoughts was that what's it called? I'm making my bed while doing this as well because I thought, how constructive is it? So basically think of it as a FaceTime call while I make my bed. Think of it like that. But so obviously, As You Stood By features well, obviously, like I think of her as Jamie in it, Jamie from Mr. Plankton, and and obviously, but then she also has that other role. Obviously, oh yeah, Lee You Me, but she also has that other role where she was obviously in Squid Game. I think that's her most notable one that people know of her in. But for me, exactly for me, I more so know her as as Jamie from Mr. Plankton, and uh, also the other one, which was oh yeah, she was also Strong Girl Nam Sung as well. So like it's the prequel of um, it's the prequel of what do you call it? Of Strong Girl Boo Song, because there was Boo Song, which is obviously what's it called? What's her name again? The actress. Oh yeah, Park Bo Young. Sorry, I was like, how could I literally forget her name? But yeah, so Park Bo Young was obviously in Strong Girl Boo Song, and then there was Strong Girl Nam Song, and that's the one that Lee Yomi is in. And so obviously, this is the show is As You Stood By, which is a drama about domestic abuse. My first things about the show, what I will say, my first thoughts were like I don't know. It was weird. I was trying to wrap my head around it and be like, this is a thing where I feel like women, like, we need to undergo some kind of, I don't know, fitness thing. Or the thing is that it makes us feel like a, we need to pick up a bit of fitness on the side, no matter what. Because my thing is that oh, it just seems like, women end up in these relationships and then they can't really, like, what's the word? They can't really fight back because they don't have any kind of they don't have any kind of like skills for that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? They don't have the skill set. It's almost like how obviously on in Sue in the show, she was obviously doing like she was doing karate. So it's the same thing like that. She picked up karate, but she picked up karate as a way to obviously release her anger. But my thing is what I thought about with the show is that like we actually all need something like that. Like so that we're actually able to, if it push does come to shove, that we are ready for the scenario when it happens. Because that was my whole thing of when I was thinking about what was happening with Hisu. Like it was the fact that she couldn't like fight back. Do you know what I mean? Because she wasn't doing what her friend was doing, which is not having a fitness class on the side and not really what's the word, having any way to fight back uh to against her husband basically. um the show is so gripping, and I feel like in the eight, I think the eight gives you everything that you need, to be honest. And then also I like that what's the word, I like that that there's different titles, and that it's obviously like, oh yeah, Onsu and Fisu, and then it's somebody else, and then so obviously when it gets close to the end, that's basically what happens, basically what follows the story, because it's just like it's us, it's them versus other people around them in the whole scenario. And bro, if you ask me, it's crazy. I was thinking to myself, because what obviously I've also thought now leaving the show is I was like to myself, two things can be two things can be true at once. And obviously, actually, that's where I'll start actually. So, two things can be true at once, which is the whole thing about how, um, okay, hold on a second. Like doing my bed as well while doing this, I'm like, I like multitasking, that's why. So it's just like, it's quite helpful. But I'm just like to myself, yeah, two things can be true at work once because like obviously murder is bad and you shouldn't kill people, right? But the fact of the matter is like the show is as you stood by because nobody was willing to help her, and if they had been, she wouldn't have had to kill her husband in the first place. It would have been a thing where like she would have got help from everybody else, and there's all these people that like exactly just stand by, and they make it seem like though in the show that it's just her friend, basically that it's just her friend who stands by, and she stands by for a lot of people that she comes into contact with. I guess like even the woman that she meets at her place of business. So it makes it seem like she's just been standing by me basically all her life, but everyone else has been standing by too. I think like even maybe that's why the last episode's like, oh, them and us. It's like a thing where it's like, it's supposed to be a reflection because it's the idea like we all stand by. Do you get what I mean? As you stood by. It's not just supposed to be pointing fingers um at her friend basically because obviously I generally feel like her friend um is actually not the only one to blame because obviously everyone sees somebody who exactly who has injuries on them because injuries are so notable. That's the craziest thing, of course. Like injuries are right in your face and they're so loud, and then you'll ask somebody and they'll be like, oh, I just fell down some stairs. But then of course what you have to do is just like you have to keep pressing that issue. And you also can't just like, exactly believe them when they say that, oh yeah, I fell down the stairs when obviously they didn't. So even how obviously in the show, I feel like yeah, like obviously her friend had been standing by for a long time ever since she was younger and being stuck in the closet. So obviously she decided to she decided, I guess even in episode one, she decided after seeing the news about someone that she had run into who was experiencing domestic abuse that she would then take it up on herself in order to help her friend um what's it called? Yeah, in order to leave her friend, I mean to help her friend from her husband and the abuse that she was getting. But it's crazy. And what was crazy also to me was obviously like what's it called? Like, oh yeah, one thing in the show where like it was like her mum, I mean no, actually sorry, her husband's mum was talking about domestic abuse and she was like, oh, um yeah, she was doing a book about domestic abuse, and then obviously and then she was at dinner with them, and then she was like, "Oh, like where did you get that mark from? Like, did you fall over or whatever, and something like that." But the craziest thing was that then it was shown later on that obviously the mum had already known, but she just didn't care, and I think that can even anyways touch on the whole thing of like a mother's love with their son. Do you know what I mean? They view their son as doing no wrong, and like they just think that they just hold their son on a huge pedestal anyways, because obviously her son had been doing it to her for like a seriously long time. And that's why even shows like this actually, they can be so like I was surprised actually when I first started watching the show that they didn't do any of the warnings. They didn't put up a helpline number. Also, I thought that they would have put that because most shows sometimes do that. Of course they do like the warning in the corner. Like Netflix always does it, which she does this thing where it's like what's it called? Oh yeah, like the warning and it says 18 and it'll be like suicide, abuse, and then it'll say all these different stuff. But I generally thought they were gonna have like a warning thing as a way to tell people that you know what I mean, like because I feel like exactly the domestic scenes in the show are obviously so like they're so in your face and they're so like abrupt, and it obviously can just be quite scary, like the way that obviously generally he was beating her and he was beating her a lot. And obviously he was also like documenting his beatings of her as well, which was crazy. And then he would also dress her up and he would see her bruises and then he'd be like, oh, and exactly, he'd be looking at her bruises funny. We'd be like, you're the one that actually did those. Do you know what I mean? She'd be there, getting him saying, oh yeah, you're coming out with me, so I need to dress you up. And then obviously, then he'd put her in an outfit, of course, where he's like, oh, I can see bruises on your leg, so we're gonna have to cover it up basically. But really, obviously, I was just generally like with the show, yeah. I was just like, I don't know, like, I think exactly as a viewer's perspective, I was just like, oh, I started looking at it like I need to be stronger. Do you know what I mean? That's obviously what it is, I think. But you know what's crazy is I also think to myself, the show makes you think that maybe it's not even also, it's not necessarily about strength. Do you know what I mean? Because this is also the thing again about like the domestics, anyways, is like domestics doesn't come down to like exactly, it doesn't come down to like strength or any of those things. Like it just comes down to like, I think domestics comes down to man versus woman anyways, you know what I mean? And so, oh wait, I said strength doesn't really play a part in it, but obviously it does kind of, because um a man obviously has a view that he is stronger than a woman, so obviously, you know what I mean, he's going to inflict that in any way. But the thing also that I thought as well was like, exactly, why is it that men obviously want to abuse women? When my whole thing was, when I thought about what her friend was doing and doing karate, I thought like a man could also pick up something like that too. Do you know what I mean? Like, why is it that they would feel that they need to uh beat their supposed loved one instead of maybe picking up something like, I don't know, uh, I want to say, yeah, like boxing, golf, kind of. Not even like that golf's a very, I don't think golf's a very violent sport though, but then that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, like, in a way, like people who abuse should obviously pick up sports like that. Do you know what I mean? Pick up sports where they can unleash their anger on those things. Do you know what I mean? Instead of unleashing them on their partner, I feel. And I think that was obviously even what was happening to her friend as well, because obviously her friend was like releasing so much of her anger out in karate, and that's why she she obviously had to stop doing it, because she was obviously, I think she was so what's the word, she was so overwhelmed and stressed with the fact that she had all of these stuff going on. And then the fact of the matter is with her character, which is obviously what I found really interesting about her, was that obviously she just saw all of this stuff happening, do you know what I mean? And basically she'd been seeing it from ever since she was little. She's been seeing it with her mother and her father and everything like that. And actually I'll get onto that bit afterwards, because I do obviously have something to say about that, because obviously the whole father and her, like her family life thing, obviously was really interesting to me. But I do think, again, when I get there, I do think that obviously it plays a huge part to just like, I guess, just to society. I think actually that's what I think it does. I obviously, so yeah, I really liked first of all, like, exactly their friendship. I liked how um yeah, how willing she would be for her friend in order to actually go ahead and kill someone and plan out a murder. And obviously, like, it's crazy because I think the show also tries, it's like has another message, because of course it's like, you know, the whole thing is revolved around domestic abuse and that serious topic. But then I think it looks at, like, do you know what I mean? It looks at morals, do you know what I mean? And the fact that so many people will obviously go to prison for killing their people who assault them. Do you know what I mean? And I do think, because that is what was interesting to me about the show, because I wondered if they were actually going to go to prison or not. And I thought, was the show going to present it in the way where, yeah, where the women would get away with it? But then obviously it's like they want to show to us actually that women don't get away with those things, to be honest. And that is something that the law system obviously needs to, like, look at. Do you know what I mean? I think it's the same way that the law systems look at cases regarding, yeah, just any kind of abuse actually. So I guess sexual and physical. So it's like they need to look at the fact that, remember, women go to prison for killing people who abuse them. And I do think that, like I said about the two things right at once, that it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, of course, someone should go to jail for killing their partner. That's fine. But then also, there's a part of me that also thinks no. But I mean, as in that if they're going to spend time, then sure, they should. But it should also be, obviously, what do you call it? A shortened sentence. So not really that long of a sentence, because of course you have to look at the circumstances, and that's the main thing about, I feel, about crimes. You know what I mean? You need to basically look at it with a lens and say, well, why did you do carry out the murder, and what caused you to get there? And also, you obviously would have done it if you felt like you had no other choice. Do you know what I mean? I think that's also what it looks at again, because that's even obviously what she was saying in, oh yeah, in the court, because that's what, again, that's what the last episode kind of revolved around, which was the idea of them versus us. You know what I mean? And saying what the overall message is that, like, no one should stand by to anyone being abused, and if you know, then you should do something about it, which is completely obvious. But then I think obviously she was saying as well that, like, oh yeah, she had moments where she wanted to die herself, and she thought to herself, how else can she get out of this scenario without killing her husband? And that is the whole thing. Like, that's the way that it holds up. I mean, it's the thing where it's like, it has a very, like, a twist to it. And the thing of the matter is, she wanted to die, so then he had to die, because it's like, I just don't even know, because you know what's interesting, because if they had decided to do it a different way, and then I suppose if, what's it called, they didn't carry out the murder, and then they did get the law enforcement involved, it would have been a thing where he would have gone to jail, but, like, he would have come out again, and then he would have been after her. So I do think this is the whole thing. Like, I do think, in a way, it makes you think it would have ended up the exact same way, because obviously she said, yeah, one of us has to die for this to end. And so I do think, even if he had ended up, what's the word? Even if he had ended up going to prison, he still would have, um yeah, he still would have come out to get her. Also, now, actually, another thing I'll move on to now, because obviously now that I'm on the point of actually him, I think, look, obviously the actor who played Jan Kang and both Jin Pyo did such, obviously, a good job, because I think people who obviously are playing two different characters, but they're the same actor, I think is a very powerful thing to do. You know what I mean? Take somebody like Michael B. Jordan as playing the two twins. It's obviously a very, difficult thing, because you have to be two different people, but you are one person. Um, I liked how, I suppose, isn't it? He was playing two evil people. So at the exact same time, because obviously Jin Pyo was a, what's it called? He was an abuser, and then Jang Kang was like, basically, yeah, we actually, when, I guess, when we first meet him on the screen, we thought he was very innocent, and just a guy working, moving boxes, and, like, you know what I mean, he seemed all rugged and everything. We basically just thought he just seemed like an all right guy. And I guess also he was also, what's the word, he was also in the thing that they were able to use in order for the murder to happen. I do think, like, that them adding that layer into the story does make it very interesting, anyways. Because, do you know what I mean? They could have done it a really, like, standard, uh, boring way of, like, do you know what I mean? Of two women carrying out a murder um on on someone's husband, and then basically, like, do you know what I mean? But just without the layer of him having a without him having a doppelganger. Do you know what I mean? So I found that whole like section. I found that whole section very interesting because, as I said, they could have just done it the standard way, and then obviously the standard way wouldn't have really been like, yeah. I just don't think the standard way wouldn't have been all that interesting. Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't have really given us much. Do you know what I mean? And I think that obviously maybe I think them adding that bit, they wanted us to also just like know that like obviously you still can't get away with those things anyways, because obviously that was a I think that was, yeah, that was obviously karma and a thing of their actions basically, because obviously I guess they had an idea that they could kill someone and like it be covered and that be the end of it. But of course that is not what like unraveled. That was not what happened in the show. Oh yeah, obviously I think with the dad part, I do think that like when I think about it, like obviously what happens in the last few episodes is like, yeah, the her mother decides to walk out on Sue's, yeah, Joe. But I was calling her Jojo actually. So yeah, Jojo's mother decides to walk out on her dad, and then obviously oh yeah, so no, but no, Jojo's mother and brother, they walk out on her father, and obviously they only decide to do that because she gives them the motivation to do so, because obviously she decided to help her friend in such a big way, and she didn't just stand by like a lot of people do, or then a lot of the people in this show. So, so obviously, yeah, they decided to walk away. But I think what they were trying to show us about the dad, anyways, was that he was not going to get what what he deserved, because obviously it's supposed to be, yeah, a reflection on society that half of the time they don't take domestic abuses cases very seriously. It was also, remember in the show, it was also like when Jin Young, obviously Jin Pyo's sister, was talking to Hisu and being like, oh, like it's something that two people in a relationship need to like figure out for themselves or whatever, and it's not anyone else's business or whatever, which sounded so weird. I was like, what is she on about? Two people in a relationship have to sort out their own domestic abuse. But then I think, because exactly when she said that, I was like, that goes back to exactly what Hisu was saying. Because if you do decide to leave a domestic um relationship and you know that it's happening, I mean, and you just leave it as is, then obviously it will end up in the way that how they had that example of the woman who went to the department store. Do you know what I mean? You'll just have it that way, and it would have just been left like that. So it would have been a thing where, exactly, this is why the show is so interesting, because it's like it makes you ask yourself all these different things. If they had just left um it alone, and as in like not carried out the murder, then it would have been a thing where eventually he would, yeah, she would have done like, actually no, she would have done nothing wrong actually, because that's the whole thing with domestic things anyways. It's not even about like what you do, it's just about how the other person is feeling actually. So it's not even down to what what like whatever it is that you've done. It's just about his mood, because this is the thing, like it's a, I guess with the people who abuse others, they just have a, what's it called? Yeah, they have a light switch, kind of, because it's more like you can just turn it on and off, basically. But and that it's just one of those things that just depend. Do you know what I mean? It's either up or down. So they can either just be like, oh, but then it probably would have been a thing where one of the days he obviously would have had a really, really bad day, and then he would have beat her probably to death. Do you know what I mean? And I think what always, and also with their relationship, was because what interests me about, um, I guess, domesticated relationships, anyways, is that the idea of like when I suppose, and I knew it actually from the very beginning. It was hilarious, but I actually knew it from the beginning when he was there buying her the necklace in the department store because I was like, what is it that he's buying? Like, though, in a way, I guess I thought of it as the normal way, not again, for it to be about domestic abuse. And I can't remember if I watched the trailer for this or not. I mean, I saw kind of a tiny preview in a way, but then I don't feel like the preview for this did actually let you in on it all that much. You know what I mean? I do think it's good when previews don't let you in on stuff too much though, because of course you want to go in blind. But like I think like I remember I when I first saw that he was buying her a necklace, I thought it was just one of those things because this is what I mean. When a man they were like, oh, he spoils his wife so much, and we were like, when a man does that, like they are guilty. Don't know what with though. Do you know what I mean? We're not like, oh, we don't immediately think, oh, he's beating her. We're like, oh, he has to be cheating, or or he's got like another family. That was that was my thing. I was like, oh, why is he buying her this? But then I think it's just so strange that in those relationships, yeah, that it's also dressed up as love as well. Like, I think that's one of the most hardest things about them. Do you know what I mean? Not even like, oh, yeah, if somebody beats you repeatedly, and then like they beat you and like they tell you that they hate you, because that's all well and fine because then you're just like, yes, of course they're beating me because they hate me. But then it's like they beat you and then after beating you, they're like, oh, I love you, don't you? And we're like, that is so crazy because obviously you wouldn't beat somebody that you love or whatever. And then, oh yeah, in the show, they kept being like, oh, I hate it when my toys get damaged. And we were like, what? Well, like, you're damaging the toy though. It's because I think what it was that scene when she probably burned herself. She burned herself, yeah, I think, when she was trying to make rice for him. And then he was like, yeah, he's like, oh, I don't like it when they get damaged. And I was like, but you damage that toy all the time. But like, you don't look after your toys yourself. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, oh, she hurt herself. But we're like, okay, like you're not doing that either. Like you shouldn't have a toy at all. And it was crazy because I remember also in the show he was like to her, I think he was talking to her about her miscarriage, and I was like, wow, what a god, like, you know what I mean, a godforsaken stuff that is, that like she obviously miscarried their child, and obviously she didn't have to have his child, but she couldn't have had it because, of course, he wouldn't have been a good father to it, and he probably would have been abusive for sure. So, and that's another thing again, because yeah, like even because that goes back to I think the miscarriage thing is supposed to also go back to like um her friend's family and her storyline, that obviously the dad was like, oh yeah, I beat your mum but I've never touched you guys, and we're like, oh, so that makes it okay, doesn't it? Like, do you know what I mean? That's completely fine, that like, you haven't really been doing it to what's it called? Yeah, to your kids. And but you've been doing it to their mother. And it's just like, yeah, that doesn't make it any better. Do you know what I mean? So, and I just think that obviously, yeah, I guess that was like, I feel like obviously it would have been sad for her to lose a child, of course, because miscarriages are, but then it's also just like, in a way, it's also a blessing in disguise because, do you know what I mean? It wouldn't have been a good living scenario, and it would have just been like how her friend was, who was hiding in the closet with her brother whenever she could hear her mum being hit by her father. So I think for me, like, yeah, that was just interesting. I went back to the fact that we didn't see her father get any kind of, like, what's it called? Yeah, we didn't see him get any kind of justice. Do you know what I mean? Like, I meant, I feel like, of course, it's nicer that they did it in that way because I meant that the mother and the brother could really leave and actually have a sense of peace. But then, in my head, I was just like, oh, the dad should have. what's the word? Yeah, the dad should have obviously yeah, got something like even when her friend took him to the police station, he didn't go in. We were like, yes, go in. Like, you've been doing it for so many years as well. And that what shocked me was that exactly he'd been doing it for so long, and that he'd been doing it ever since she was a child. And then when she came back for her mom's birthday, he was still doing it. And we were like, how long are you going to do it for? Do you get it? Like, so like we go away for a bit, but you're still doing it? Like, that's just scary. Like, you would think that he would obviously, and then give it up. Do you get what I mean? And I think it's crazy because I think even with that scene, you could tell that he was obviously beating her even before the scene happened, I mean, because obviously the way he was acting on her birthday and the way he was being like, oh, let's just blow out the candles. He was just like, oh, let's get this out of the way. We were like, oh yeah, you definitely hate your wife. I just like, we're like, we don't know why, but yeah, you hate her, and I don't know what your reasoning is, but yeah. But this is the thing anyway. This just goes back to like, why do people get married to people that they can't stand? Like, do you know what I mean? I don't get that. Um, People get married to others and like um they hate them though. Do you get it? So I never really understand that as much because it doesn't really make sense. Um, but yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, regarding my rating actually, because I obviously always like to think about that after a show, right? I'm like to myself, I'm thinking obviously, yeah, I'm thinking five, or that was what I was thinking at first. Then there was something that was bugging me when the show finished because I was really confused about the fact that of course we saw them in court, but we didn't really get like what their sentencing was or what their like ruling was. We had their whole little speech and spiel about how exactly their what's it words, yeah, their little final statement. So we had that, and the fact of the matter is with them being like, yeah, um obviously, yeah, Hisu was like, yeah, I killed my husband, obviously because I wanted to die most of the time. And then obviously then Jojo was like, and then Jojo was like, yeah, don't stand by when people are being abused and stuff like that. So that's what was happening. But then obviously my thing was that exactly then in a way it just went on to what's it called? Yeah, I feel like I don't know if that's just me, but then I do kind of obviously feel like yes, the last episode was like a bit rushed, even though like fun enough, even though it was like an hour long or something like that. Yeah, it was like an hour long, but it was still just a bit all over the place because obviously I even just searched the article as well because I was like, oh, what was her sentence? We don't know how long she spent in prison. I mean, how long both of them even spent in prison. I think obviously, I don't know. Yeah, again, I don't know how long they spent in there. They did go though, anyways, because obviously they went because obviously people found out that she killed Jim Pyo. But they didn't touch up on that really. And then also the article had said as well that that her mother had passed, but I don't really think that obviously again they didn't really like again they showed that when off obviously her and Jojo were at the tree, but then as I said they just again didn't really, they just jumped over that as I said again. And then obviously then they did that whole jump to when they were in Vietnam and then with Mr. Jin and living their new lives. Do you know what I mean? But again, I still in my head, still in my head thought like, yeah, it was a bit of a it was a bit of a skip and run thing, and I was like, you guys should take it slower. You should slow down. Do you get what I mean? So that's why I was like, oh yeah, four or five. But I would feel like overall, like aside from the last episode, it would for me be a five um just because yeah, they just touched on this scene, and I mean sorry, not scene, subject matter. They touched on it in a very good way. And I think that um yeah, they were able to like um Yeah, handle a subject matter like this in such a good way. Like, I don't know, it felt, I think for me, it just felt like exactly so real. Like, yeah, it felt real. But then I think that's why sometimes with these shows, anyways, because them not saying about their sentence, for me, kind of made me feel like, oh, this is just what shows do. Do you get what I mean? They always, what's the word? They always just um run over things, or they leave small things out because they know that it's a show and they kind of just want to get out what it is that they're trying to do, but they don't really want to touch on everything else that they should be touching on. So yeah, I think that they basically just wanted to wrap it up. And then I think a lot of people are saying that like K dramas are getting shorter nowadays. So I feel like that's obviously again could be another reason actually, but I don't know because obviously this show is 8 episodes long. So that's obviously my whole thing is that's why it probably was like um yeah, it was kind of like they want it to be like um intense and they want it to like yeah, be intense, but they want it to be intense and quick. Like hit you with the scenes quick, 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 but like and flesh the story out quick, quick, quick. Do you know what I mean? They want it like that. So I don't know. I think also actually yeah, I kind of want to also touch on what's it called? Yes, I want to touch on Mr. Jin, right? Because yes, he is a great guy. And I think my thing was actually in the whole entire show is that I think I know why they didn't do it because my thing was that they probably should have gone to Mr. Jin in the very beginning, right? Especially even when, um, especially when Jojo found out in the first place. So when she went to Hisu's house and found out she was being abused from the very beginning, then she probably should have, what's the word, confided in Mr. Jin. But then I think I get why they obviously didn't do it that way because, I feel like they didn't do it in that way because they want it to be a very um what's it called? Yeah, have this feminist narrative around it so that obviously women can take their own lives exactly into their own hands. You get what I mean? So obviously Mr. Jin helped them in the yeah, Mr. Jin helped them in the long run, but like obviously I mean nearing to the end, but I think that they kind of wanted the show to be a way that like do you get what I mean? That women don't always need yeah, they don't always need to be the damsel in distress and saved by men. Like they can save themselves. So I get it. I get it in that regard. But I feel like everything else. But I feel like anyway, because he ended up helping them in the end, wouldn't it have just been a good idea if he had helped them in the beginning? And then I feel like maybe the situation could have been handled way differently. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it could have handled way differently. Um, I don't know. It's like in my head, I don't know how Mr. Jin would have done it, but I guess when you think about it, it would have been interesting to see how he would have done it. Um, that's all my thoughts on it, really. Tell me what you think about the show, and also, um, yeah, tell me what you think about the show because exactly, I'm like, no one's actually gonna. I was gonna say, I was like, no one's gonna be listening to this, if they haven't seen the show already, because that wouldn't make any sense. I'm just like, that wouldn't make any sense because exactly the show is not something that you can just listen to this and then jump in. Even though I don't really feel like actually I have spoiled all that much, to be quite honest. I've touched on things here and there, but nothing crazy, you see. So, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I feel like obviously anyone listening could still go away and watch the show. Do you know what I mean? It still wouldn't change much. You just know um yeah, you just know names of the characters and you'd know, um, actually, yeah, I'm lying. You would know a huge bit. But yeah, tell me your thoughts on the show, and obviously, thank you for listening. And I'll see you in the next one.